Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful September the 19th, 2019. Ground of the Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's a beautiful day down here in the South. Everybody's commemorating the anniversary of September 19th, 1947, when Jackie Robinson was named Rookie of the Year in the Major Leagues. Think about it. The first year that an African-American athlete ever played in Major League Baseball, Charlton, he won Rookie of the Year, being the most dominant young player in the league.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. It's always amazing when I talk to you, Big C. I hear about things that I haven't heard elsewhere, and I really love the fact that we have. That's why I call you the Mystic. I want to say this show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. And so, so much is important. I know we did this whole beautiful segment on the history of black colleges, the HBCs, and I just appreciate the fact that even myself doing the show with you all the time, because I don't know what you're going to say, but even just finding out some of the great athletes that have been given that opportunity, how they're become household names, but the universities are not bragged upon as some of the mainstream blue bloods. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's almost like you leave out the universities when it comes down to HBCs. They really don't talk about them in mainstream media. They want to make the sports world out there believe that these athletes got to their high acclaim all by themselves, that they did not get the great tutelage and training from African-American coaches, Charlton. They were very knowledgeable in all aspects of football as far as conditioning, understanding the game, teaching offense and defense technique and skill sets, Charlton. But, it's a shame that the historical black colleges do not get the recognition on a day-to-day basis in the media outlets, Charlton. Even in all the sports segments you look at on all the shows that are out there, whether it's radio, television, internet, they don't talk about the historical black colleges. There is a game tonight, Charlton, between the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both of those teams have a rich history of players on their rosters from historical black colleges that have been major contributors throughout those franchise histories. But as the game rolls on tonight, Charlton, even if they mention some of these players, there'll be very little mention about the universities that they attended.
That's so amazing. It's about acknowledgement to where things come from. And if sometimes they don't say it, Big C, because they don't know it, because it's not something that they saw on the news in the last couple of weeks. Because you got to do your homework. Just remember back in college when the instructor would say, we're going to study this topic, whether it's law or business or whatever it happens to be. And they gave you this big book. And this book had all of the subjects you're going to study for that whole year. And then they would quiz you on chapter 1 through 25 or whatever it is. And you actually had to do your research. And just like the movie Hidden Figures, the history of African Americans is, for the most part, is there, but mainstream says, well, we're not really interested in that. But once they realize that this country was built by black Americans, why not pay homage to that? That's like robbing themselves of history. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that have occurred, Charlton, over the last 25 years of education, if you look at a lot of it, books don't exist anymore.
That's right.
Especially in the lower levels of education, in junior high and high school. They removed a lot of the books. Why? Because of the internet. When I grew up, Charlton, there was no books, whether it talked about history or science or whatever, that involved African Americans. It was almost like all of their accomplishments had been omitted from history. And as we've gotten older and the internet age has come into play, all of these things are relevant now at your fingertip. You don't need the print media.
That's right.
So to have those print books, Charlton, in the curriculum now in schools is an oxymoron because they're telling a lie and not telling the truth.
That's true.
Because anybody can pull up history on the internet and find the innovations and interventions of black people as far as the growth of America from its inception. And to see even now in modern times how blacks have advanced technology, science, politics, every aspect of American life. And so to think that blacks were not a part of America's structure, that was a lie that was told for decades. And so now, because of the internet, you know, they've curbed as far as how they teach history in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. And that's why it's important to me. I was talking to a news director here in Northern California, a program called Your Life or Your California Life by ABC News in Northern California. So I really appreciate that. Also a news director by the name that I've just grown over the years to know, Riza Omega. Just appreciate her, as well as Desiree Shepard here in Northern California on ABC News. So everybody talks about doing research and understanding where things are. They're in the books, Big C, but if we don't have a history that's inclusive, look at the White House. It's exclusive. They want to exclude people. But we need a history that's inclusive, and I really do believe, I'm not saying this with all my heart, I believe that's why the universe allowed Big C Sports to grow the way we've been growing. Because nowhere can you go where you have people that can blend mainstream news and history as well as current events, and then people of color, whether it's African American, whether it's Hispanic, Native American, history and current events, do politics and sports, and then have people say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense because there's no one doing that, Big C. If that makes any sense to you, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the reason why people have not done it and haven't been doing it is because the terminology, you don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Society has been comfortable the way that it's moved along for the years. It's just like with the NCAA fighting against paying student athletes any type of revenue or even making money off of their likeness. Because they've been very comfortable the way things have gone over the decades, that they've received all the revenue and they don't have to dole it out to the student athletes. That's a lot of money that you'll be putting in these young men and women's pockets to make them have a forward step in life. When they get out of college, they would be debt-free, Charlton. They'd be able to move on with their lives because only a minute percentage of them are going to be professional athletes. But those who don't become athletes, Charlton, they have a nest egg, so once they get out of college, they can move forward. When you think about, you know, these big-time college coaches, guys making anywhere between $3.5 and $10 million a year as a head coach of a major university in a Power 5 conference, they're not sitting there saying, hey, you know, I want to take a pay cut to get a job. They don't do that. They have agents, and they're always negotiating for more monies. And these universities feel that it's relevant and okay to give them the money. But they don't feel that it's okay to give it to the student athlete because they're the one out there generating the money. We talked earlier about the University of Georgia and the University of Notre Dame playing this week. The gate revenue for that game is just going to be just under $57 million for one game.
That's amazing.
$57 million that a regular season college football game is going to generate. That's an astronomical amount of money. When you think about a lot of cities around America, their city budget is not $57 million a year when you look at a lot of small towns that are the size of these football stadiums. So when you think about the revenue that these athletes generate just on one Saturday afternoon, and they're not allotted to get any part of that, there was also a study done a couple years ago at the University of Texas. And this is a program that hasn't been on the winning end since Mack Brown had left. But the University of Texas put a tab on each one of their football players, saying that the value of each one of the football players on the football team equals $600,000 of revenue to the university. This was a study that was done in 2017. So you think about that each student athlete on the football team at the U of T was worth $600,000 a year to the university. Now we just saw that the other day when we ran the numbers on the University of Georgia and Notre Dame game, is that the average ticket price is $611.
That's incredible.
$611. That was of Tuesday. And so 83,000 plus people are going to be in the game, which brings the gate revenue to just under $57 million for the game.
That's a lot.
So what is the value of each one of those student athletes right now at Georgia? If one game is going to bring $56 million in revenue to the team.
I'll take it. I'll take it, Big C. It's all fair in love and war, but if you don't talk about things, then sometimes you gotta blame yourself. So that's why as Big C Sports, I want to make sure that we always say Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. All you gotta do is just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate all of our sponsors for their support. I also, as I was talking to some news directors at ABC News here in Northern California, I talked about the National Suicide Hotline that we do as a Big C Sports Podcast, and just trying to get more programs. If they can't take 10 seconds to say it, at least scroll it on the bottom of the television, and not just when there's a national disaster. But it'd be nice to just do that, because people who need help oftentimes don't reach out. But they can call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or Big C, they can text 838-255. That's 838-255. I told them my partner Big C and we do that PSA on every show since you brought it to my attention, so I give you credit for that. And I'm asking the news programs in Northern California, just take 10 seconds to do a PSA, or at least scroll it on the bottom of your screen. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, it's so important, Charlton, because when you talk about the news stations, they want to talk about gory stories, Charlton. Feel-good stories are not good on news. They figure that does not drive the needle, and it doesn't, sell viewership.
Yeah.
They want to talk about negativity. They want to talk about a car wreck. They want to talk about a crime that's been committed.
Right.
But if you can prevent something heinous from happening in American society, I think that's what you should be trying to strive for as a news. When you think about the news outlet, Charlton, they are free access. Those are public access stations.
Yeah.
They're supposed to do PSAs every day because they are public broadcasting stations. They're funded by the federal government.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to reach out and help all community aspects, Charlton, just not the negative stories that they want to use to drive their ratings.
Yeah.
But the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is a great American deed that anybody can do to help those people in need. We think that everybody is strong in this country.
Yeah.
Even when you see people that are down on their luck, people say, well, they're not trying. They can get out and do better for themselves. That's not always true.
Yeah.
We don't always know the circumstances of individuals. Yes, there's a lot of able-bodied people who refuse to do anything for themselves, but there are people that have vulnerabilities out there all the time.
That's right.
People take advantage of them, try to manipulate them.
Yeah.
But especially our service people, Charlton, who have come back from fighting wars across the water to protect American sovereignty. And when they get back home, Charlton, seems like the world has turned their back on them. And this has gone since World War II, when African-American soldiers came back from World War II.
That's right. Yeah.
Especially the Vietnam era, Charlton. And now with all the soldiers that have coming back from these Middle Eastern conflicts.
Yeah.
America seems like they don't have time for soldiers. They'll always say, hey, thank you for your service, but they're gone. That's the extent of it. Thank you for your service. But thank these gentlemen and ladies by spending some time talking to them, finding out where they are. What is their life structure like now?
Yeah.
Did they suffer anything in the war? And you suffer things even if you don't have physical harm to you. The mental harm that comes from having to witness things like this can put people into depression. And people in depression don't generally talk. And so you have to find a way to help them out. This National Suicide Hotline is an unjudgmental line where there are people on the end willing to help you. They'll sit there and talk all day to you if that's what's warranted, Charlton, where most people just want to spend a few minutes in a conversation.
Yeah.
But don't be hesitant about giving out the National Suicide Hotline number to prevent any problem, whether it's an adult, whether it's an adolescent, whether it's a child. This number is there for everybody, Charlton. And everybody in America needs help at times.
They do, Big C, and just bringing that up because, again, it's a sad dog that won't wag his own tail. I was talking to a good friend of mine today, and actually I was told some good things about myself and some of the things that we're doing with the show, and I always credit you for things that we just go back and forth about things that are important, because I don't want to just have a sports show that's just about who won the game. That's the dumbing down of America. I want to pay homage to the black military history. And when you think about it, it's about having so many people of color. The military history of African Americans spans from the arrival of the first African Americans, according to the Military History Encyclopedia. And it's on the web. You can Google it. If it's not for black Americans, this country would not have made it, Big C. A lot of free labor was given. of African Americans as slaves and free African Americans, served on both sides during the war. And there's a gentleman by the name of Gary Nash. He reports that recent research concludes there were about 9,000 black patriot soldiers, Big C, that fought for this country. And as part of the Continental Army and the Navy and state militia and other units and privateers and part of the Army and the services that they're kind of forgotten though. I know some of them, they were buried in cemeteries, but they were not put in national cemeteries. They were kind of ostracized and exiled in a sense. So even when we talk about that military hotline, I'm just saying to my gut, Big C, as I Google more and research more, there are oftentimes that people who look like you and I, even though they fought and gave their blood for this country, they're kind of they don't exist to some people, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, black soldiers have always been ostracized since the Civil War, Charlton. They never received full recognition in military honors, even in their death, even though they fought for this country in every war that America's ever had.
Yep.
World War I, black soldiers were ostracized and not even being able to serve with mainstream soldiers, Charlton. World War II was the same way. They were always put in battalions and regimes where they could not go out and represent themselves fully. But they never lost battles, Charlton. They were the greatest fighting men in every war that America has had. They had served this country with honor. And this country also disrespected them in life as well as in death.
Yeah, it's always true. And I'm glad that we do it as Big C Sports, because when we don't do it, then oftentimes people don't know about it. I just want to say one more thing. William H. Carney, his valor at Fort Wagner, was honored May 23rd, 1900, when he was awarded the Medal of Honor. That was almost 40 years after he so proudly served with the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. He was the first black soldier to receive that award. I just think that's important. You're not going to hear that on the mothership. You're not going to hear that on any other program. They're going to be having fake arguments about who the better athlete is without even paying homage to some of our great soldiers who were black and made it possible for not just African Americans to be free, but all people. That's so important to me. So I love doing that with Big C Sports, and thank you, Big C, for that. I also want to touch on, as we talk about a little bit of sports, last night, I think Bruce Bochy and the San Francisco Giants, they did party like it's 2019. Prince did it 1999. Bochy did it 2019. They got number 2,000, Big C. They got it out of the way as they took Boston. They took 2 out of 3 games. I'm not going to say the score today because people devo and Google things. But 2,000 wins to do it at Fenway Park. We talked about Yastrzemski with him and his grandson. And the fact that he did it, and I think, and I might be wrong, in the oldest ballpark that still has some of the original seating in Major League Baseball history. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's the oldest ballpark in the American League, Charlton, the Fenway Park in Boston. Wrigley Field is going to be the oldest ballpark in the major leagues. But, to accomplish the 2,000-win plateau, I mean, that's a long and illustrious career for Bruce Bochy to be able to get to those numbers, Charlton. Very few managers have reached that plateau.
Yep.
But to do it on the road and to do it at home, it does not make a difference. When teams win championships generally, in pro sports, they do it on the road, especially if you win the Super Bowl. You do it on the road.
Yep.
In the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball, it's a 50-50 proposition whether you're going to win it at home and the road. Boston won it on the road last year in Los Angeles.
Yep.
So it's about winning. That's what it's about. You don't worry about the backdrop or the setting. At the end of the day, you want that W when it's all over.
You want to win. And I know the Giants, there's still an outside chance that they could be a playoff team. I don't know if it's going to happen, but they tend to do better on the road than they do when they're at home. I know they left out of Boston, and now they're heading down south, Big C, and they're going to take on the Braves. And it's amazing. The Braves are right there in the thick of things. They want to get back to that NLCS. Who knows if it's going to happen? But what a great thing for Bochy, a class act, and even to see him to get a standing ovation even in Boston. And oftentimes you don't do that, even being from the National League. They're an American League city, but that shows a lot of class, at least for Boston. I know the city has its own issues with sometimes race relations, etc. But I thought that was really nice for Bochy to go East Coast and get a standing ovation. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's the thing about baseball, Charlton, when you play in one of those historical cities that understand what the game is all about. Here's Boston that has seen the greatest of all baseball players ever walk through the American League and now even the National League. So you think about those fans. They're not fair weather. You think about the struggles that Boston has had this year. after winning the World Series last year, Charleston, those fans stay behind them.
Yeah.
Because they appreciate the athletes that come through that great facility.
Yeah, it's always good. So today, Major League Baseball and the schedule for Thursday, when you look at the NL, you have Philadelphia at Atlanta. And, you think about it, Nola for Thorns with Philadelphia is 12-5. And then Soroka for Atlanta, he's 12-4 on the season. These games have already happened, but we don't want to give out scores because people, record things to go home and watch later. And then Seattle, they're at Pittsburgh. San Francisco, again, that game happened at Boston already today. Congratulations, Bochy, for what happened last night. And then San Diego's at Milwaukee. Milwaukee still, they have a fighter's chance, if that makes sense. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're still there in the playoff hunt. There's about 10 days to go left in the Major League season, Charlton. And all you got to do is sweep a couple series, and that will get you into that wild card berth. I know they lost Christian Yelich, but since Christian Yelich has been out of the lineup, Charlton, they've been 6-1 since he's been injured, so they haven't given up on the season.
No, they have not given up on the season. And when you also think about a team that have a lot to go for them, St. Louis, they're thinking about, they're the biggest rival for the Cubs, even though you would think of it be the American League White Sox, but it's not. But St. Louis, and also they're at the Chicago Cubs, and Henderson's on the mound for the Cubs, 11-9 on the season. Flaherty at 10-8 for St. Louis. Now I hear there's some stuff. It's okay to say it. I don't even know if it's true. It's like rumors about the Bush family and has a Bush family, and then Harry Carey, and wives and friends and wives. Big C. Sometimes it's all fair and love and war. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the series between the Cubs and the Cardinals, Charlton, is a long-standing rivalry.
Yeah.
These are two cities that generally hate each other when it comes to baseball.
Yeah.
And they go back many, many years when you think about it. And for years, the Cardinals were always reigning in the Central Division over the Cubs. The Cubs was always the laughable Cubs, the laughing stock of the division. Over the last several years, Charlton, they've risen to become the top team in the division. Cardinals had fallen on some hard times, and yet the Cubs have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And now these two teams are in a neck-and-neck battle for the Central Division, Charlton. And the winner of that series between those two will make the playoffs, and the other team will be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, they're just two great baseball cities. St. Louis lost. They lost the Rams, of course. And then in Missouri, Kansas City lost the Sacramento Kings. It's just about everybody has to play where they play. And then the Cardinals.
Well, when you look at that city, Charleston, they've lost a lot of teams over the years. You think about St. Louis.
Yeah.
The St. Louis Browns used to be there years ago before they went to Cleveland.
Yep.
And also that there was another Major League Baseball team. I'm trying to remember who that was, and I was thinking it was the A's, but they were in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. But there was another team in that city before they left St. Louis. So this is a city over years, over decades, long before these television sports shows came out, that had lost a wealth of professional teams.
Well,
and they also lost the spirit of St. Louis, an NBA team is still active without putting a roster on the court every year, but the owners are still getting paid.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? They struck that deal where they continue to get paid no matter what, and I thought that was smart to do. And then, of course, the Cardinals down. Kyler Murray, could you imagine the number one draft pick could have been, hypothetically, still in St. Louis, but down in Arizona. But money happens, and it's amazing how teams can go where they want to go, but people don't want Ramsey to decide if he's going to go to a different team. Also tonight in baseball, when you look at the American League, Seattle at Pittsburgh, San Francisco, obviously we went through that already, but I just hope that Seattle can turn things around, Big Z. I don't know if they will or not. It's just a matter of how people look at things when it comes to them. We have the Angels at the New York Yankees, Toronto's at Baltimore, Detroit's at Cleveland, and Kansas City at Minnesota. Just talking about the teams that are left Missouri, Kansas City, I believe, is Kauffman Stadium, right there in the same parking lot as Arrowhead Stadium, and that's the old design of sports teams. Now it seems, Big C, when baseball and football teams want to build an arena, instead of doing it in the same parking lot like the Coliseum in Oakland, where the Warriors are gone next year, they're going to play in San Francisco. Well, actually this year when it tips off. And then the Raiders are gone after this year. They're going to Vegas. And even the A's are moving, up north on I-80. But they're not building the same type of structures where they'll put all the sporting events in one spot, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, a few cities still have that. If you go to Baltimore and you look at Camden Yards and you look at the stadium that the Ravens play in, they're across the parking lots from each other.
Yeah.
There's a couple cities that have done that. But, it all depends on the population that's coming to whichever event. I mean, the baseball crowd is not always the football crowd.
Yeah.
And when you look at the number of baseball games that are played over a football game, you have to go where the environment is a lot more inviting. This is the reason why we have very minimal dual-purpose stadiums now in professional sports.
Yeah.
Because each one of them have their own different attractions as far as what they want to draw.
Yeah.
You don't see basketball arenas next to football arenas anymore, Charlton, because they're just many different entities out there.
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. I want to touch on some things, and then I want to come back and get your thoughts as we talk about some NFL football coming up a little bit later. And I know, you think about WNBA. I think Elena Della Donna wins her second consecutive WNBA MVP for the Washington Wizards. The forward received 46 of 48 first-place votes. And I know that WNBA, if you look at how long they've been around, there's still some sparse crowds, but they were doing as well as NBA was doing. In fact, you can watch them in prime time, NBA finals at a time. You have to wait till midnight to watch the games. So that progress is coming, but it's slow. I still would like to get your thoughts. Stop playing WNBA games in NBA arenas, and if they do, just tarp off the top the way the Raiders and the A's do at the Coliseum. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they have, Charlton. With the finals that are going on right now with Las Vegas and Washington, with Elena Della Donna plays. She played at Delaware State, Charlton, a tremendous basketball player. She's a forward for the Washington Mystics, in the WNBA.
Yeah.
They're playing in a smaller arena, an on-campus arena at Georgetown, Charlton, which is downsized, and so they're able to make it look more inviting. It's more intimate. And I know in a couple of other southern arenas, Charlton, they play on university campuses instead of in the NBA arenas.
Yep.
So they found a way to make it more intimate and enticing to the fans. But when you look at the quality of basketball that the WNBA plays, and yes, they play in prime time, they play in real time on television now. When I grew up, the NBA never did that.
No.
So when you look at the growth of the WNBA, it's actually ahead of the curve of where the NBA was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
If you think about the NBA 50 years ago, you cannot see a primetime game on television with the NBA. And we're talking about the finals. It came take delayed after the late local news.
Yeah.
So now you're getting the WNBA in primetime. You're actually being able to see these players. The ladies are being marketed on television.
Yep.
So they've done great strides in their short time since they've been active in professional basketball.
Yeah, and I hope that's gonna, it's just gonna resonate. It takes more time. We still want to see more women going out supporting WNBA. Now I think, and I might be wrong, I guess I could Google it, but the half of the fan base that watches NBA basketball, I would say about 40% are women. At least it seems that way. And maybe that's because you have a spouse may take a spouse to a game, and maybe that's why. But I don't know if I see as many men in the women teams in WNBA games. It seems like it's mostly women by themselves. So can't they bring a date, Big C? If that would get the crowd full of your Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, it really is about a 50-50 crowd. I mean, if you look at the NFL, 47% of the participants who watch the NFL games live are female.
Yeah.
They go there, and when NFL uniforms were designed a few decades ago, Charlton, they brought in females to ask them what they like. And that's the reason why you see pants that look like they look now. You see the custom-made jerseys that hug the body. That's because of the female input with the NFL as far as what they were looking for.
Yeah.
And even when you look at apparel from all the professional leagues, Charlton, they have designs that are fit for females, not for males where they used to have to buy the big baggy jerseys.
Yeah.
They have custom-fit female jerseys for them to buy. And even when you go to a WNBA game in Charlton, you'll see a lot of men in the stands. And a big reason for that is that they want to see the beautiful women that are playing in the league. That's what they do. And just vice versa when you see male games. Women want to go see these great athletic bodies. Yeah. They want to sit there and see these guys on the field turning to husband. You should look like that. So this is the reason why we get the mixed crowd in both types of sports.
I think I just learned something because when I was back in the day playing ball in college and high school, I noticed that most men would have those baggy sweatpants that you had some room to move around, Big C. And now I'm like everything is painted on and so skin tight. Are you saying that women are the reason that men feel pressured to wear skin tight pants, BC? Is that what you're saying, BC?
Well, especially in sports, Charlton, the design of the football uniforms came from female input. The NFL went out because they knew they needed to expand their market as far as people attending the games. You could no longer just market to the men. You automatically had them.
Yeah.
So they had to find out what was appealing to the female audience to get them to want to watch the games live and even on television, Charlton. And it was about showing off the male physique. I mean, you see all these muscle magazines in grocery stores when you're walking through the stands.
Yep.
And even some of the sports magazines that put out, they normally have a physical specimen on every sports magazine, regardless of the sport.
Yeah.
But they show them in a light that will be appealing. And so this is what the leagues are all about now. Even in the NBA, when they've gone now to the baggy shorts. If you think about the early days of the NBA, it was all about wearing these real tight, skimpy shorts.
That's right.
And that was trying to attract the female audience. Once they got them, now they could go more comfortable in their attire.
Yeah, that's fun. I had no idea. So does that mean that all the tight pants in my closet, I don't have to throw them out, Big C, because that makes any sense?
Well, it all depends on the lifestyle you want to lead, Charlton.
That's so funny. Women are the reason we have tight pants in the NFL. I tell you, I love it, Big C. That's so funny. And I want to say we're going to come up with what's called the Big C pause. And I'm going to see if I can, instead of trying to unloosen my pants to be more comfortable, I'm going to keep them tighter, Big C. We'll take the pause and be right back in just a moment. All right, Big C, we are back from the Big C pause and the Big C timeout. Is all fair in love and war. I think for every man in the universe, don't get those pants that are too tight. Don't have them. You go to the seamstress and you have them take out some of the seam to make it stretchable. I guess what Big C just told me, wear the tightest pants possible because that makes people happy, and when people are happy, that's good, Big C. I wanna look at also a guy that maybe could use some tight pants, Big C, to get happier. The NFL. Did the Giants bench Eli Manning too soon? And how will the team move forward offensively when it comes to the same scheme with Daniel Jones? And I have two thoughts on Eli Manning, because Eli seemed to be okay with being benched. I've never heard of a competitive athlete that said it's okay for another man to come in and swoop his girl away, for another man to come in and take his job, whether it's corporate America or on the athletic field. But when Eli said, if I just happen to be the backup now, that's not what you want to hear from a guy that wants to compete. When Joe Montana was told he couldn't have a job because the Niners brought in Steve Young, he said, trade me. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it was a different skill set with Joe Montana and Steve Young. When you look at Eli Manning, 16 years in the league will take its toll on anybody, Charlton. And Eli knows that there's been a downside and a decline in his career. He watched his brother decline in the latter part of his career.
Yeah.
He sees that his productivity is not what it used to be. But he's also making $1 million a game carrying a clipboard and an earpiece.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad demotion when you look at it. There's not many people that can lose their job and make $1 million a week. So Eli is not disgruntled about that. All competitors want to play.
Yeah.
But Eli also knows that he's not the decision maker with the New York Giants.
Yeah.
He knew this day was coming.
Oh, yeah.
All players like to go out on their own terms. But in professional sports, you don't always get that ability to do that. There's management, there's coaches who have to make decisions for the long-term welfare of an organization.
Yeah.
Eli knew when Daniel Jones was drafted is that his time frame was going to be real short in New York because they've drafted quarterbacks every year that Eli has been there.
Yeah.
But they had never drafted one in the first round before.
Yeah.
And so this is the first quarterback they drafted in the first round. People also forget that Eli Manning replaced a Hall of Fame quarterback when he became the starter with the Giants. Not many people want to remember that.
Yeah.
He replaced Kurt Warner. So if you think about Eli's career and the productivity that he's had, he didn't walk in there being the greatest show on turf.
Yep.
He had to replace somebody, Charlton, and so that time has come with Eli.
Yeah.
Eli doesn't want to be traded because he personally feels, as well as I feel, Daniel Jones won't make it through the season healthy.
Really?
So he will get an opportunity to play again in New York. And he'll get to finish his career with one team instead of going somewhere else like his brother and trying to hang on without guarantees.
That's a very good statement. Cam Newton's injured. We know that a lot of players are going to get banged up, especially when you have that running ability. But also Andrew Luck retired because of pain and injuries. We've seen it happen where players just get banged up. Garoppolo, I know he's still gun shy, even though they had a lot of open receivers in the game at Cincinnati for some reason. The 49ers, that the Bartolo family and then the group now that they're married into, they're from Ohio, so maybe that was a little, payback favor coming from Cincinnati. But if you look at the Miami Dolphins, they benched Ryan Fitzpatrick today in favor of Josh Rosen, their new starting quarterback. I still remember Josh Rosen come out of UCLA. In fact, at UCLA, when he had the come from behind win against Texas A&M in the Rose Bowl, that was really his last best opportunity to show if he was good or not, and that got him a chance to get drafted. He still had a 100-yard game with the Arizona Cardinals, and now that he's in Miami, if he's your best hope, Big C, things are really down, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the Dolphins, Charlton, they're not set on a quarterback. When you started Ryan Fitzpatrick over a guy that you made a trade for on draft day,
right.
Charlton,
Yep.
That lets you know that he did not fulfill the expectations that you had of him when you brought him in. Arizona was very easy to let him go after making him a number one draft pick the year before.
Yeah.
They gave him up for less than what they spent for him, Charlton.
Yeah.
So Josh Rosen has just not fulfilled what all the high expectations of him were.
Yeah.
We talked about the quarterbacks from the historical black colleges yesterday.
Yep.
And the few numbers of them that have gotten opportunities in the NFL,
That's
and
right.
also those that have been successful in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you would think about that the quarterbacks from the historical black colleges still, Charlton, today do not get opportunities in the NFL. And when we think about a college quarterback that comes from the mainstream, especially the Power 5 conferences, and as they fail every year in the NFL, there's no backlash saying, well, they're not cerebral.
No.
They don't grasp the game. Maybe we should try to make a defensive back or a wide receiver out of them,
Yeah.
Charlton.
Yeah.
They just move on to the next guy and never admit their mistakes. And here's Josh Rosen, that has not had any level of success in the NFL,
Yeah.
either with the Cardinals nor with the Dolphins as of yet. He's going to be the Week 3 starter. But the Dolphins right now are not even banking their future on Josh Rosen.
No.
They are hoping that he fails and they can end up with the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah, and I want to go back and just ask you again a follow-up question to what you said, because we did this great thing on the HBC, the black colleges, and there's over 107 of them in the United States of America, and not all of them are boasting sports programs. But when we talked about some of the great African Americans that have played at these historically great conferences, the SWAC and the MEAC, and the lack of opportunity that they're given to be first, second, or third round NFL draft picks, oftentimes they want them to walk on, Big C, so they don't have to pay them as much. But could you imagine what's happening with Josh Rosen and the lack of productivity? Even guys like Fitzpatrick, who was decent at times last year in Tampa, but when they stink it up so bad, no one ever questions if they have the intellect to play the sport, but that's still it's tacitly said now about black quarterbacks. Well, we don't know if he has what it takes to play the sport, but when white guys come in and fail, they don't say anything bad other than we're going to find somebody else. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you look at how the number one pick is being maligned right now in Arizona.
Yeah.
Here's Kyler Murray, who was passed for 650 yards in his first two pro games.
Yeah.
Josh Rosen played on that same team last year in Arizona, Charlton. He never had a game where he passed for 300 yards.
No.
So when you think about the comparison of quarterbacks, Kyler Murray is still being dissected. It's almost like the media does not recognize Josh Rosen any longer.
No.
And no one talks about the abysmal performances that he had last year.
Yeah.
If you look at the numbers that Josh Rosen has put up, not Josh Rosen, but Kyler Murray has put up this year as an NFL quarterback.
Amazing.
And they talked about the quarterbacks drafted last year, the 5 that were drafted. You realize none of those quarterbacks that were drafted last year, Charlton, in the first round, whether you look at Mayfield, you look at Darnold, you look at Allen, you look at Jackson, you look at Rosen. You realize none of those quarterbacks amassed 650 yards in their first 2 games playing as an NFL quarterback?
You can Google
None of them, Charlton.
That's true. That's a good stat, Big C. People can Google that. I believe in being an advocate for everybody, but especially African Americans, just like the Buffalo Soldiers. People need to know about them. The Tuskegee Airmen. People need to know about that as we pay homage to our military veterans, Big C. The Miami Dolphins. So when they bench Fitzpatrick, what's his future in the NFL? He challenged Winston in Miami, in Tampa. They decided to keep Winston because of the contract, etc. They both have not been what they could be. But Fitzpatrick, no one can tell me that he didn't throw balls intentionally to the Patriots in that game. It just, you don't throw into triple coverage, Big C, and have a pick six. Your thoughts?
Well, the 4 interceptions that he threw against the Patriots was his demise, Charlton. He threw 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. You can't be successful as an NFL organization when your quarterback is not giving the productivity to your offense and giving it to the defense. Brian Flores is in a quandary.
Yeah.
And you think about Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Last year, he had Steve Wilkes, a coach in Arizona, an African-American coach. Now he has an African-American first-year coach again in Miami.
Yeah.
He cost Steve Wilkes his job. I think that the Dolphins will stay with Brian Flores as a coach because they are tanking intentionally. This is an organization. You trade away a young defensive back, first-round draft pick, and you make a move. You got quarterbacks that you really didn't make a move in the offseason to get a veteran quarterback this first-year coach.
Yeah.
You said you were going to go to the scrap heap and bring in some guys to try to be a stopgap scenario, and that's all the Dolphins are doing this year. They're just being a stopgap, hoping to get a quarterback in the first round next year.
Yeah, and they'll probably will. Think of quarterbacks, Big C, and I love how you went down the history of the historical black colleges and their quarterbacks that went on to NFL stardom, even though they were not media favorites. They were kind of like they were just kind of pushed aside, Big C, and marginalized. But I really love the fact that you did that because it made me Google some of these great players that Madison Avenue would say, well, we like his numbers, but he's not white, so we're going to go with someone who's white is not as good. Sean Payton for the Saints will not name the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints versus Seattle on Sunday. That game's in Seattle. And I agree with him because you don't want to give Pete Carroll in that defense, more chance to tee off. But I want to ask you this question. As a defensive guy, you played against quarterbacks that were mobile. You also played against quarterbacks that were sitting targets. I think they should split time with both of those players, whether Pete Carroll gets a read on them or not. That makes more sense to me, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, both of these quarterbacks are going to play in the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
I do honestly feel that Teddy Bridgewater will start the game. But what this likens me to, Charlton, when I look at where Sean Payton is playing his hand at, this team right now reminds me of the Pittsburgh Steelers when Bill Cowher was coaching the team.
Yeah.
And he had a young quarterback that got the nickname called Slash, Cordell Stewart.
Out of Colorado.
That's who Taysom Hill reminds me so much of in New Orleans when people look at it. The difference is he's white, Slash was black.
Yeah.
But Taysom Hill is an Army Swiss knife when he comes on the field. This guy can play any position just like Cordell Stewart did in Pittsburgh. He's an innovator. He changes the dynamics of the game.
Yep.
When you look at what he can do. He's a different version of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. I look at both of these guys with the same type of skill set. But Taysom Hill will be a game changer when they do get to Seattle. He will put a lot of pressure on that defense. As I look at what they're going to do with the quarterbacks, Teddy Bridgewater, they got to change up the game plan for Teddy Bridgewater. He is not going to be operating under the Drew Brees game plan.
Right.
When he came into the game against the Rams, they hadn't set up things for Teddy Bridgewater. He was just coming in running what Drew Brees would run from the pocket. You're going to see a lot more movement offensively this week from the New Orleans Saints, moving the quarterback out of the pocket, creating different throwing lanes for both quarterbacks.
Well, I love the fact that you have Hill and Bridgewater, and both guys are mobile, and they're going to show you that's the future of the NFL. But this, I won't say this started with the Colin Kaepernick because Fran Tarkenton ran around a lot too as a youth, but it did start with this type of athleticism. And maybe Dickey for the Raiders back in the day had that type of athleticism, I know
well,
Roger
Roger
Cunningham.
Staubach did it, Charlton. Roger the Dodger, that was his nickname
Yeah.
in the NFL. He was a highly mobile quarterback when he came into the league. But there's been a lot of mobile quarterbacks. You can go back to Bobby Douglas with the Chicago Bears. Bobby Douglas was a highly mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't remember that when Bobby Douglas was drafted out of the University of Kansas, he was the second quarterback taken in the first round that year.
Yeah.
Just the Pittsburgh Steelers got fortunate with the one that they drafted, Terry Bradshaw, who went on to win 4 Super Bowls, and a lot of people forget about his mobility throughout his career.
Well, that's true, but let me ask you this thought, though, because as a defensive guy, if you're chasing around Fran Tarkenton, who was mobile, if you're chasing around Fran Tarkenton or Roger Staubach, that were mobile guys, or Joe Theismann that was mobile, that's not the same as chasing around Lamar Jackson. That's not the same as chasing around, Flash back in the day, or Michael Vick, or Colin Kaepernick. Would that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you forget about Randall Cunningham, how he altered offenses, Charlton, when he came into the NFL with his mobility. Steve McNair was highly mobile when he was a quarterback. Steve Young did the same thing. There's been a great plethora of mobile quarterbacks in the NFL that a lot of people forget about. Rich Gannon was a great mobile quarterback in his time with the Vikings, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. As a matter of fact, people tried to make a defensive back out of Rich Gannon because he was such a tremendous athlete coming out of Delaware State. So we've seen highly mobile quarterbacks throughout the years in the NFL. It's just people forget about them, and like what I said, they think about the guys that they see on television now and forget about the guys that were around. Jake Plummer did that while he was in Arizona with the Cardinals prior to going to the Denver. His mobility. Don't forget about how mobile John Elway was.
That's a good point. But is there a difference as a defensive guy? Is there a difference chasing down a mobile guy like Gannon that runs a 40 and 4.9, or chasing someone like Colin Kaepernick that runs a 4.5 40? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, actually, Rich Gannon did run a 4.5 40. That's one of the things. Don't be misconstrued about his speed when he played. But the thing about an NFL quarterback, okay, they can be mobile.
Yeah.
But the thing about them, Charlton, is that they don't spend time in the pocket. It makes your job easier as a defensive player.
Really?
Because if you're only defending against the run and not defending against the pass, then it makes it much easier because it's going to take a lot of time off the clock for your defense. You're defending against runners. When you got to run these long pass plays, you got great linebackers now, Charlton, that will wear down these quarterbacks when they take too many chances to come out there. When they're not protected in the pocket, and they come out there, they'll run it. They don't have that same shield that you can't touch them. Although the NFL has altered things over the past couple of years. But years ago, Charlton, there were live bait. There were no slide rules in football. When the quarterback out there, unless he stepped out of bounds, that was the only time you couldn't hit him. So it limited quarterbacks wanting to run. If you go back and watch tape of quarterbacks in the NFL 20 years ago, they did not try to run downfield frequently. I don't care how great an athlete that they were.
They didn't want to get hurt.
Because they knew once they got out of the protection of the pocket and broke the line of scrimmage, that you would fair game to have a shot taken on you.
That's very interesting. So as a defensive guy, you like a guy that runs because it gives you one option in quarterback as opposed to stand in the pocket. Okay, that makes sense.
Let him run. You can take his head off. That's the thing. As a defensive player, if you knocked the quarterback out of the game, it gave you an advantage because that backup normally did not have the same ability as a starter. So you liked for that guy to give you an opportunity to make his Sunday work day a little short.
That's amazing you say that. Look at Cam Newton, injured. Who was luck last year, could run out of the pocket also, out of the game. I mean, Brett Favre had been beaten up so much because he was also doing the same thing. Steve Young, even though he ended his career with a concussion, he was also a guy that would get out of the pocket, so I understand that point. I want to get your thoughts, though, because tonight we have Ramsey. It may be in his final game with Jacksonville. If they're smart, maybe get rid of him, because you can get something for him now. But at the same time, maybe they'll keep him. I want to get your feeling. They're down there playing their game against Tennessee, and it's a game where it's going to be about him as opposed to their good defense, and their defense is pretty decent. Give me your feeling again. Are you on his side? And I think you are, but I can't speak for you. Are you on his side to be vocal when you want out, or do you do it behind closed doors, Big C? Your thoughts?
I'm very much on his side when you want to be out. I mean, this is something that professional athletes have now. They have the media on their side, and they also have the media against them. But how do you know what Jalen Ramsey's thoughts are unless the media puts a mic in front of his face, Charlton?
Right.
This is the reason why you have these different opinions about athletes.
Yeah.
But athletes should have the ability to have some say-so in the way that their career goes. We see it all the time when athletes hold out, wanting more money. That's having a say-so. But when you tell an organization that you would like to part ways with them, that you no longer feel comfortable being in that environment, I look at it that a lot of teams are starting to accommodate that, Charlton. Look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers did.
Yeah.
When they had a couple of players that didn't want to be there in back-to-back years.
Yeah.
They were gone. The team is worse for it, but I would rather have a disgruntled player gone from my organization than to try to keep him around in the organization. At some point, he becomes a cancer. At some point, he's going to be that liability where he decides, I'm going to cost this team games.
Yeah.
They don't want to accommodate me. I'm not going to work completely hard for them.
Yeah.
It is so easy for a professional athlete to misstep in a game and give up a touchdown, especially as a cornerback when you're out there on an island.
Yeah.
You let the receiver make the play. You don't go as hard as you can to stop the play.
Yeah.
These are the things that have to be contentious within the Jacksonville Jaguar organization.
Yeah.
How long do I want to keep this disgruntled guy around? How much riff is he going to cause within this organization?
Yeah.
Do I fine him? Do I suspend him? Or do I trade him? And if you suspend him, Charlton, the Players Association is going to step up. They're going to file a grievance.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay that guy. You lose that grievance, it's going to cost you even more. So why not move on beyond this player? If he doesn't want to be there, send him to an organization. You can send him to a good team. You can send him to a bad team.
Yeah.
You have that control. But
yeah.
if he's not happy, how much of a team player is he going to be? He's going to go out and play tonight.
Yep.
But how happy is he going to be going forward?
Well, that's interesting, Big C. So we'll see how that plays out. And even with Nick Bosa over in San Francisco, there's some things with him. I guess he's somewhat injured. Who really knows how the 49ers are very secretive for releasing, information on players. I want to run down, just to get your quick thoughts, as we look at some of the standings in NFL football. And if we look at the NFL in the American Conference, the AFC, if we look at the East, we have New England up top. They're 2-0. Buffalo is 2-0. The Jets are 0-2. And Miami's 0-2. But when you think about Miami, they've given up 102 points. The Jets have only given up 40 points. Buffalo's given up 30. Big C, it might seem like a typo, but the Patriots have only given up 3 points. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, no, I think they've given up 13 points, Charlton. They gave up 10 last week to the Dolphins, and they gave up 3 to Pittsburgh. This is the Patriots right now have the best defense in pro football. If you think about the last 3 games that they have played, counting back to the Super Bowl, the 3 games that they played, they've given up 1 touchdown in 3 games.
You're amazing.
1 touchdown and 3 field goals.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a defense that's underrated, no one gives them credit. Everybody wants to talk, well, the Bears got this defense, the Broncos got that defense. Well, the New England Patriots are going to go 16-0. What's going to be amazing about the NFL, Charlton, this year is that you have 2 teams potentially that can go 16-0. If the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens will meet this weekend.
Yeah.
If the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs will not lose during the regular season.
Well, they're awesome.
There's a potential of having 2 regular season teams this year in the NFL, Charlton, that go 16-0.
That's amazing. When you think about the AFC West, Kansas City 2-0, they've only given up 36 points. The Raiders 1-1, they've given up 44. The Chargers, they're 1-1, gave up 37. And then Denver, they're 0-2, and they've given up 40 points. In the North, you have Baltimore. People talk about Jackson, how good he is. They've given up 27 points in 2 games. They're 2-0. Cleveland, they've given up 46. They're 1-1 on the season. Cincinnati's 0-2. They've given up 62. And then Pittsburgh's 0-2. They've given up 61. And when people make so much noise about defense, Houston, they've given up 42. They're 1-1. Indianapolis, 47. They're 1-1. Tennessee's given up 32. They're 1-1. And then Jacksonville is 0-2, giving up 53, but they're perceived to have the better defense in that division. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, to have a great defense, Charlton, you got to have some offense because those guys got to get some rest. Sometime. And when your defense is spending so much time on the field, they lost Nick Foles in the first game of the year. They're playing Gunnar Minshew now, the rookie quarterback out of Washington State. Ironically, the last 2 quarterbacks out of Washington State are going to be starting this week
Falk
in the
Nation.
NFL. Nick
Yeah.
Folk is going to be starting for the New York Jets against the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
The best of luck to him in
Yeah.
that situation. Wouldn't wish it on any young quarterback.
Yeah.
And Gunnar Minshew is going to be starting tonight against the Tennessee Titans, a divisional rival. The young man showed some promise in his first start last week, Charlton.
Yep.
But I think he might be in over his head tonight. And the weather down in Jacksonville is going to be torrid. They've had a lot of rain in that area today.
Yeah, it's always something to pay. The humidity and the rain, Big C. In the NFC, Dallas, they're 2-0. They've given up 38 points. Philadelphia 1-1. They've given up 51. The Giants are 0-2. They've given up a 63. Washington is 0-2. They've given up a 63. People talk about Prescott, and he is amazing, Big C, given the money, but the defense has only given up 38 points to Big C in 2 games.
Well, the Dallas Cowboys have put a lot of money in their defensive players in off season. So it's no surprise that, they're undefeated. When you think about what Dak Prescott has done, Charlton,
Yeah.
he's been very impressive, 7 touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. So he has his Dallas quarterback situation locked down. But the thing that I'm bothered with him the most is that everybody's out there saying, well, he has no signature moments. He just doesn't seem to move
Look
the
at his
needle.
record.
All he does is win, and that's
Yeah.
not exciting.
Yeah, well, he's black, so they want him to also paint that star on the middle of that field, too. He hasn't done that yet, Big C. There's always trying to find an excuse. When you look about in the conference in the South, in the NFC, Tampa, they've given up 45 points. They're 1-1. Tampa's something else. I don't know what's going to turn out with that team because Drew Brees is hurt and Cam Newton's hurt. They're right there with Atlanta at the top of the division, Big C, as bad as they played. Atlanta, they're 1-1, giving up 48. New Orleans, they're 1-1. They've given up 55 points on the season, Big C. You look at Carolina, they're 0-2. They've given up 50. Could you imagine if Tampa wins this division, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, ironically, when you're tied for first, anything can happen.
Yeah.
There's a logjam in that division. Carolina is struggling. Cam Newton's not going to play this week. And so they're going to be starting a young quarterback, I believe it's Allen, who's going to be starting for them.
Yeah.
But Jameis Winston has a chance to right the ship down in Tampa. He has Bruce Arians as a quarterback. This is a do-or-die year for him. They picked up the 5th-year option on his contract. There's been no talk about signing a new contract. So his NFL career is hinging on whether the Buccaneers make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, could you imagine as bad as they looked against San Francisco, and even they looked bad against Carolina, they're number 1 in the division. Their defense is the best in that division so far, only giving up 45. In the North, Green Bay, they've only given up 19. Detroit and Green Bay is 2-0. Detroit's 0-1. They've given up 37. I still think the Chargers got robbed up there, Big C, in their last game. Minnesota's 1-1. Their defense has only given up 33, Big C. Chicago's 1-1 with the perceived better defense. They've given up 24, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the thing in Chicago, you got to question the quarterback.
Yeah.
This is a team that's 1-1. They couldn't score in their first game of the season, and they struggled against the Broncos when they played there in Denver at Mile High.
Yeah.
So they really haven't done much offensively to be 1-1, and so the big question mark with them, just like in Minnesota with your cousin, is can the quarterback get the job done this year?
Yeah, he's not my cousin. This stat, I'm still not sold on Garoppolo. I want everyone to succeed, especially I'd like to have the $137 million too, Big C. When you look at the West, the 49ers, they're 2-0. They've only given up 34 points, Big C, and people make it about Garoppolo. Their defense is only giving up 17 points a game, Big C. The Rams, and you think about it, their defense has scored at least a couple of pick six, Big C. That's something that I want people to pay attention to because their offense has scored 72 points, but their defense in the 49ers, they're legit this year. The Rams, they're 2-0. Their defense has given up 36, Big C. That's right behind the 49ers. Seattle, Legion of Boom, they're 2-0. Their defense has only given up 46. And then Arizona's 0-1-1, and they've given up 50. It seems like those top 3 teams defensive-wise are pretty stout. 49ers, the Rams, and Seattle. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, ironically, when you say 76 points that the Niners offense has scored, you got to take at least 14 off of there. for a couple of pick six
That's
returns.
right.
So their offenses hasn't been as powerful and dominant as people think. Their
Yep.
defense have been stalwarts in the first 2 games of the season, but it's a long season. You got to realize you're not going to get those pick six every week, and especially with Richard Sherman to get a touchdown.
That's very true. Big C, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. If you have a TV set at home, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast. But I really love the app with Alexa and Google. Just say Alexa or Google, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I'll introduce Big C's The Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the growth. When you think about closing out, and I love getting into tomorrow, Big C's Friday Night Lights. We're going to do the Black College, some stories on Black college programs as well, and then Major College, the Blue Bloods, and we'll do Big C's NFL picks as well as some Major League Baseball. In college football, Michigan is a 3.5-point underdog at Wisconsin. Big C, the last time these two teams met, Michigan lost by 14. So how does Michigan stop Wisconsin's Jonathan Taylor? Big C, he has 8 touchdowns in 2 games, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, and he's also caught 2 touchdowns this year. This is the first time in his career at Wisconsin that he's had 2 touchdown receptions. Matter of fact, his first touchdown reception.
Yeah.
And when you think about what Jonathan Taylor did last year, Charlton, he rushed for 2,000 yards on the season, and no one knew about it. It was the quietest 2,000 yards on the ground in college football history.
Yeah.
This young man is dominant.
Yep.
But when you look at the horses that they have up at Wisconsin, and Michigan is struggling, this is a signature game for John Harbaugh. Here it is. He's 1-5 against AP top 10 teams, Charlton, since he's been back at Michigan.
Yep.
So if he doesn't win this game, it's going to be a lot of the hecklers starting to say, hey, we need to move on from Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him, because when come with a lot of hype, Charlton, you got to look at the downside of this.
Yeah.
And so Michigan struggled at quarterback last time that we saw them on television against Army.
Yep.
Took them to overtime to be able to come out with a victory, Charlton. But they were all over Michigan's quarterback. So they're going to have to do something offensive line-wise to protect who's ever behind the center, whether it's Shea Patterson or the young kid and his brother McCaffrey.
McCaffrey, yeah.
One of those two is going to need a lot of protection from that offensive line.
Let me just, on the last question I want to ask you on college football, because I know you talked about I think nearly $57 million will be made, and that's on gate alone. That's not considering TV revenue for the Georgia and Notre Dame game. Is there any feeling in the South with the Southern media that I know that there's a guy named Feinbaum that said some nasty things about Taggart at Florida State, and I thought that was horrible to do that and not single out some of the Caucasian coaches who are also trash. But he also needs to add that many of the teams in the SEC, as he may disparage an African-American coach and not disparage white coaches, he has to also realize the players that make these coaches great, they're black. And I wish he would put that on too, because it's a color thing going on, and people won't call him on it, but I will. Any more thought about Brian Kelly being trash because he has a 1-win, I think only 1 win in 14 tries against top 5 teams, Big C? Is he trash, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Brian Kelly is sort of insulated being at Notre Dame. As long as you put together a competitive team in South Bend, if you remember just a couple years ago, they were calling for Brian Kelly's head. I think he had 6 victories on the season, and people saying he must go.
Yeah.
He rebounded the next year, Charlton, and put together a winning record. But even in Notre Dame, they'll call for you to move on. They've gotten rid of many coaches in Notre Dame's history that have not been successful, whether it was Jerry Fouts, Dan Devine, Charlton. There's been many of them that have to go. Bob Davies, Charlie Strong.
Yeah.
Notre Dame will move on beyond coaches, Charlton. But when you look around at a lot of these schools now, they're a little hesitant about getting on mainstream coaches.
Yeah, I understand. But we just say Google it, Big C, because I want to be fair to everybody. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, as we move forward on the weekend, we're going to see the playoff landscape shaking up in college football. there's about 4 or 5 games that will eliminate teams from that playoff hunt, Charlton, this early in the season.
Well, it's a lot going on, and I really look forward to the big game at the Coliseum. The Utah Utes coming in to play the Trojans, and you can look forward to it too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.